Hi guys, and welcome back. Today we've got a first on Twisted Locker, something we've been desperate to do for a while.
Yep.
And we've got Darren from the Slaughtered Lamb podcast. Thank you for coming on, mate. We appreciate it.
Hey.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
No, you can crack on. Sorry. Yeah.
Thank you very much for having me on. This is a treat. I don't get to do much of this sort of thing very often, so it's a nice change for me to do something like this. And I've been watching you guys now for a little while. I'm fascinated with the chemistry between you because it's not often you get really good chemistry, and you two have it in spades. So I was really excited to come on and talk some guilty pleasures with you.
Yeah, I think the dynamic is good with us because we're cousins, first cousins.
Right, okay.
But I'm 15 years older than him, so I do see myself as the more mature of the two. Even though I've got a clown behind me and Rude Ralph. But yeah, when I was younger, we used to have a very uncle nephew dynamic, and then as the years gone, we've been sort of mates, and we share a lot of the same sort of love for horror, but his horror sometimes goes fucking right out the window, and that's why this guilty pleasure is going to be perfect, because today we're going to do guilty pleasure. We're going to have 2 picks each, but Curtis has an unfair advantage. All his films are fucking guilty pleasures. His entire collection, they're all dog shit.
You know what I did, right? To pick my 2, I went up to my Blu-ray collection, closed my eyes, and just there's 1, there's 2. Honestly,
yeah, easy.
I have to admit, the one guilty pleasure I picked the other last week when we spoke about doing this, and I knew straight away which one I wanted to talk about. The second guilty pleasure, I picked it on the way into the room tonight after I looked at the video shelf. I was like, right, what am I going to pick here? And it was between a few. I might do a little honorable mention in there or something.
Yep.
But yeah, I've settled on 2 now, and I'm ready to go.
Right. Do you want to start then? Your first pick? Just give us one of them, and we'll take it in order and go round twice.
Me?
So yeah, Darren. Sorry, I said you, and as if you can see what I'm looking at. See this? This is how amateur we are. Not you, us. What's your first pick, Darren?
My first pick is.
Oh, this is going to be. Is that the original or the remake?
The original, yeah.
This is the original. I mean, the remake is good, but Joe Dante's original tops it off for me. I mean, the remake was Alexander Aja, who did High Tension and Hills of Eyes, and God, he's done some great horrors. But the original Joe Dante, Roger Corman Piranha, is one of my best favorite guilty pleasures of all time. I remember seeing it in the early 80s as a kid in the video store. And because I'd seen Jaws at that point. I saw Jaws in the cinema in the late 70s on the reissue. They brought it out again. I think it was about 1978, 79 or something like that. Dad took me to see Jaws. Absolutely loved it. And then this film Piranha, this movie Piranha came along in the video store, and me and a friend of mine rented it, and I couldn't believe the amount of gore. This was a level above Jaws, but felt to me like it still had a similar kind of not quite the sort of A-list summer blockbuster that Jaws was, but it still had a quality to it. And obviously I didn't know who Joe Dante was at the time. I didn't know who Bradford Dillman, Heather Menzies, Kevin McCarthy, all the cast that were in there were. I think I may have recognized Dick Miller, who's in there, but that was about it. But the film itself borders a little bit on fantasy in parts. There's a scene in a laboratory with some sort of crazy miniature dinosaur thing, something that you would see on the table in the Star Wars cantina or on the Millennium Falcon or something like that. But I was really taken back by the level of gore in this film, and it really stayed with me for a long, long time. Now, I know it's kind of like a Roger Corman B movie, but I still think there are really kind of strong qualities to it. The music is fantastic in the film. The makeup, I think, is fantastic. The Piranha effect sequences, like there's a sequence towards the end of this film where Bradford Dillman's trying to poison the lake and kill all the piranhas, and they're attacking him while he's doing it. Some of that effects work, that practical effects work that you see there, which I think was Phil Tippett who did it, is so realistic, where they're chomping away at Bradford Dillman as he's trying to undo this kind of gas pipe to flood to poison the lake. It just blew me away. It looked so real.
Do you know, I haven't seen it. I've never
You
seen
haven't
the
seen
movie.
it. I'm going on like this, talking to you guys like you know what I'm on about.
No.
But it is fantastic. And you know, over the years, there's been numerous editions of it, and I've kind of started to delve into it. Obviously, with Joe Dante being the director and everything, I'm a big Joe Dante fan as well.
Yeah, he's
Of
brilliant.
course, he's great.
Yeah. When this film was coming out, Spielberg got word of it, and Universal Pictures wanted to stop its release because it was coming out around the same time as Jaws 2.
Right.
They wanted to try and cancel the release. Yeah, well, it was things like the imagery on the front, which is kind of almost like a blatant rip-off of Jaws. Do you know what I mean?
Cool.
So they tried to have the film pulled, and Spielberg watched it, and he actually said, "Do you know what? This film's actually not that bad. It's no threat to our movie.
Yeah.
If anything, it pays homage to our movie. So I don't have a problem with it." And then
his own corner, is it?
Is what? Sorry.
It has his own like B movie corner. It doesn't.
Exactly. Yeah. And then what happens next is that Joe Dante in the early 80s then directs Gremlins for Spielberg. So a relationship was formed between these two directors when one studio was trying to get this movie cancelled.
Yeah.
And I just think there's a really nice, kind of cozy, fascinating backstory there. Do you know what I mean?
What about the sequel and the James Cameron epic? Which I haven't seen it, but I've heard all about it.
It's dreadful. I mean, it's. I think it's like a co-Italian production or something like that. And when you read into it, there's a lot of rumors that Cameron was actually fired after a week of production.
And he broke back in the need to edit his own movie.
I think so. That's right. Yeah. He I think he was dismissed from the film, but because you can't change the director on a movie once everything's locked in.
Yeah.
And it's the same way that, you know, Bryan Singer was fired off of Bohemian Rhapsody, but his name is still on the credits. But Dexter Fletcher pretty much directed the whole of that movie.
Yeah.
And it's a similar thing with James Cameron on Piranha too. His name stayed on it, and he's that's like baggage to him, I think, for the rest of his days.
I think the problem with the remake Piranha that came out 2010 or something is too good. I thought about putting it on my list, but I thought I don't think it is. I think it's as good. Like it's up there with like Tremor's level of good B movie. It's just too good. I think it needs to be a bit.
3DD almost made
that one
on my list. The
Scene
scene right where what's his name, the Hoff, when he's running through the water. There's so many funny scenes in that movie.
Holy fuck! I'm getting old.
And I think they're a little bit better than B movies. Like if you've got Sharknado, for instance.
Those are mega B movies.
Yes, of course. They know what they are, but
yes.
I think I quite like the Piranha remix.
I'm gonna watch it. I'm gonna take your recommendation. I don't take Curtis's recommendations because most of them are shit. And in all fairness to Curtis, he knows this shit. He's not. He says, "No, this is shit," but I love it. You know, so you can't really give him too much shit for it.
Darren, this is a thing about Jenks, right? He's a mainstream man, right? If the movie didn't have a big budget, right, and it wasn't directed by someone big, it's not for Jenks. Yeah, but Babadook is a well-made movie.
Yes.
You know,
it's
anything schlocky 80s B movie. Can't get nothing out of it.
I'm looking at everything you guys have got there, so I can see American Psycho. I love that film. I can see Evil Dead 2. Is that? There's a few Evil Dead 2 posters there.
No, I got Evil Dead 2. I'm on mid-red here. It's quite hard for me to point.
Dawn of the Dead.
Dawn of the Dead, the remake, which I'm a big fan of.
That's good.
Return of the Living Dead, Babadook, and that's
Salem's
Lot.
And you've also got Cabin in the Woods and Poltergeist there as well.
Yes.
And then over in your side, Curtis, you got Faculty, Army of Darkness, Brain Dead,
just shit stuff, basically. Yeah, it came with the house when he bought. They just left it there. Yeah.
Fun fact, right? I think Death Proof is Quentin Tarantino's best film.
Fuck off. Better than Pulp Fiction.
No,
Oh, come on.
no, no,
No,
no,
no.
no.
He's
No,
railing me up now.
it's
Don't listen to him,
it's my
Darren.
favorite. It's my favorite Tarantino movie, but we all know Pulp Fiction's his best. But Death Proof is my ultimate Tarantino movie. One of my favorite movies of all time.
It is
I
a
thought
good film.
Death Proof was boring, and I was so
Oh, I
excited
loved it.
about so excited for it because of Kurt Russell and everything. And there are some really neat
Yeah.
bits in it, but on the whole, I thought it was just up its own arse for the most part.
Do you know what I think the problem with it was that because in Britain, they were meant to be, in America, they released as two, what they call Grindhouse. And
Yes,
because it
Yeah.
didn't sell well in America, they
split it.
released that one and they made it longer. They left all the deleted scenes in to make it more worthy of one. And I think that's where it loses it. It'd been
Yeah.
better as an 80-minute romp.
Oh,
like,
so
I
it was
think.
released as a shorter version in the US.
Yes, and I think when it was released in Britain then, because they were trying to market it as just one film
Mm.
and to give value for money, I think they just padded it out with all the deleted scenes to make it more marketable.
Yeah,
But I
yeah.
think that's the downfall. Yeah. Anyway,
No
going
downfall.
off subject. What's your pick, then, Curtis?
Right,
First
my
one.
first pick. This is a proper 80s cult movie, right? And I've got Trick or Treat from Charles Martin Smith.
Oh, the
I am
Rockstar one. Or the
yes,
yes,
the Rockstar one. So
yes.
I am a huge fan of this movie, and this one really takes me back to those early years of getting into horror. I think our auntie worked in a video store in the 80s, and she used to give my father all the posters that would come in. So in my father's attic, which I lived in, he always had these old 80s horror movie posters, right? And one of them was the original Trick or Treat poster, where you've got Sammy Kerr and all the characters going beside him. One of the greatest movie posters of all time. And I just spent years just staring at this poster. Obviously, back then you didn't have, access to films unless you owned them on physical media. And I didn't see it for years and years and years. And I found her in a bargain bucket one day on DVD when I was a little bit older. And I absolutely loved it. Now, I know it's a bad movie, but it's one I've loved since
No,
I was
it's
a kid.
not. I
I
love
haven't
it.
seen it. I haven't seen it.
Oh, it's terrific.
I'm not a problem.
Curtis, can I ask which poster was it? Because I think the UK poster is so much better than the US poster for this
So
film. Which one was it?
it's got the shiny metallic Trick or Treat right then, and then it's got Sammy Kerr, and then it's kind of like, I don't know, melted green across the bottom, and then all the
Yes.
characters. Yes, that
Yeah,
one.
yeah.
So he
Very
had
cool.
that poster, and I was obsessed with it. I even remember seeing the trailer at the start of a VHS tape. I remember it coming up.
Yes, I remember the trailer.
Um,
Awesome.
Yeah.
I love this movie, right? Sammy Kerr is one of my favorite horror monsters. He's got a great backstory, the way he comes into the film. I can't believe he's not a real rock star. And what I remember about this one as well, right, is Gene Simmons and Ozzy Osbourne featured on the UK
They
DVD
do.
covers, long hair rocks, everything. Gene Simmons is in there for about, in all fairness, he's got a decent part in it. He's got a connection with the main lead Eddie Weinbauer.
He's the
And he's
DJ,
the one
isn't
that
he, in
gives
it?
him, yes, he's the
Yeah.
one that gives him the vinyl that brings
Yeah.
Sammy Kerr back.
Yeah.
But Ozzy Osbourne is on the front cover and he's literally in there for less than a minute. He's just on the TV quick.
And he's
isn't he?
not,
playing
he's
like
not
a
even
vicar.
actually in it. He's just like on a TV in the background, isn't he?
Yes,
Now and again.
because he's talking about satanic music and why it's
Yeah.
wrong.
Yeah.
So, Curtis, let me ask you a question. You know me better than Darren, obviously. Would I like Trick or Treat?
No, you'd hate it. You would absolutely hate it. Look,
I'm
It's-
sold.
it's-
I'm sold. I'll watch it.
it's a cheap, lesser known 80s movie, but no one's performance is bad. It's got a great villain. Tony Fields as Sammy Kerr is absolutely amazing, and there's really good special effects in there. There's one scene in particular where basically Eddie Weinbauer's been bullied by these teenagers, and he conjures up Sammy Kerr, and then he basically goes out on a rampage of revenge, right? And there's one scene where the girlfriend of one of the boys who's been bullying him, he puts this cursed tape in her cassette player, right? And she's listening to it in the back of the car. And there's a great scene where you see like all the stuff come out of the headphones and down her body, and her ears start to melt. And it's such a great scene.
But that's her ears start to melt after a top's come undone on its own.
Yes, yeah.
Right. I'm sold. I'm sold.
No,
Yes.
it is a great movie. It's one that I loved when I was younger, and it stuck around. I've rewatched it countless amount of times as an adult. I still love it. Like I said, the soundtrack's amazing.
Soundtrack's great. Fast
Um,
Way, isn't it?
Oh,
Fast Way.
it's
It's
so good.
superb.
Tearing
Yeah.
down the walls is one of my
Mhm.
favorite scenes ever. Obviously, when Sammy Kerr dies and he goes on that rampage through his room, ripping all the posters down. It's such a great scene. What I will end on, right, is I almost picked Neon Maniacs, right, because that was one of my favorites when I
Oh,
was
that's
a
my
kid.
pick.
And
No, I'm
as if
joking. As if.
my father had this on VHS, right, and I actually tracked it down on VHS a few months ago. I paid £30 for it, right, on VHS, and I hadn't seen it since I was a kid. And I loved that film. I battered the VHS tape, and I had great memories with it. Well, I dug out my old VHS player with the TV and that. I bought it, I put it on, and oh my God, it stinks. It was
Yeah.
never complete. They ran out of money and they just went, all right, we'll just chop up what we've got. The monsters are great in it, but they literally just chopped up what they had and put it together and chucked it out. And it hasn't aged well at all. So not so much a guilty pleasure, just a film I used to love, I suppose.
I might check it out. Right, you ready for my first pick?
Yeah.
Let's
Go for
have
it.
it.
Obviously, mine's going to be a slightly classier than your two picks because you know I just it's quite of a boring one. Now I promise you, my second pick you'll never guess. Okay, but the first pick is quite generic. It's Jason X, otherwise known as Jason 10. There's a lot of hate for this film. I saw it in the cinema back in 2001 or something like that, I think it was, or I think it's something like that. I loved it. I know you're gonna lynch me, Curtis. I think it's the best one.
Oh, come
I do.
on, best one.
Oh, do you know what? Right? Have you seen it, Darren? I'm assuming
I
you have.
have.
Yeah. What do you think of it? Is it a guilty pleasure? Is it actually good?
Frank, my co-host on our channel, he absolutely loves the film, and it's one of his. It would be in the top half of the franchise for him. He absolutely loves it. He sees it as a real guilty pleasure. I think it barely got a release in the UK when it came out. It went on so few screens in the UK that I think I saw it on. I don't know whether I saw it on a VHS or something like that. I didn't see it in the cinema anyway. I do think, as a standalone horror movie, I kind of prefer it. I don't like it as part of Friday the 13th.
Yes.
But I do think that it's got one of the best kills in the franchise.
I know exactly what you're going to say.
Yeah.
Is it liquid nitrogen?
Yeah. I think it's a fantastic kill.
100%.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
For me, see, sorry, Curtis, you go on.
No, it's your film, Jenks. Go on.
So for me, I like consistency normally, but I kind of like the fact that they just pretended number 9 didn't happen. He didn't go to hell, and I like the fact they came up with this silly thing that he has regenerative cells. That's why he keeps surviving.
Yeah,
and the sort of supernatural element was thrown out the window. I love the fact that the more rotten he gets, the more stacked he gets. You know, he's so like juiced up. But you got Kane Hodder, which is the best version of Jason, in my opinion. And I I think it's quite a funny, especially the bit where he's killing those teens with that with the sleeping bag. I know it's a throwback, but I was laughing my head off. It's such a good scene.
The only problem is Kane Hodder jumped on at the wrong time. So Kane Hodder did 7, 8, 9, 10, I believe.
Yes.
And they're the 4 weakest Friday the 13th, in my opinion. Now, his Jason is good and iconic, but he jumped on ship at the wrong time. Jason X, right? I don't like it very much, but I haven't seen it as an adult because when I was younger, I was obsessed with Jason and all of them. I love Crystal Lake. And I understand that sometimes you go, we need to do something different because we can't just keep going back to the lake. I know, let's send him up into space. Most franchises have gone there. We've even had Leprechaun in space. Do you know what I mean? Or he went to the hood, he went to space, like. But you know what?
You've seen that, haven't you?
I have.
I haven't. I've never seen
20 films, right, of Jason in the woods, and I'll take it. I don't think he needs to go anywhere else. Every film's a different part of Crystal Lake, and every film feels different to the point where you go, do you know what? Let's just chuck him in a different part of Crystal Lake, chuck some new characters in. I'll be happy with that. He doesn't need to go to space.
The only bit I don't like, oddly enough, is the main part of Jason X. I don't really like him turning into like half a cyborg. I think he looks a bit shit. I'd rather him just be Jason in space.
Yeah.
That's when I'm like, all right, that's a bit too like early noughties. But
Yeah.
it is
It's
funny
aged
as
a
Oh,
bit, hasn't it?
definitely.
Yeah.
yes.
Yes.
But yeah, that's my guilty pleasure. Darren, have you got a second one?
I have.
Oh, you're very prepared. Fair play. Oh, Curtis is gonna love you.
Halloween
Get in.
3, Season of the Witch.
That was on an underrated sequel video, and it was his pick. He loves it.
Nothing
well,
guilty about that one, Darren.
Halloween was one of the one of the first horror movies that had a big impact on me, I think.
Yeah.
And so the Halloween franchise, although I love Friday the 13th and Elm Street, and they've all got their highs and lows, Halloween for me has always been my kind of go-to slasher. And I remember, I saw it as a kid, the original one in kind of like 81, 82 or something like that. And not long after I'd seen the first film, I discovered there was a sequel. The sequel came out in my local cinema. And obviously, I was old enough to see it or anything. And I think the year after I saw it on VHS, and I remember being on holiday around the time that Halloween 2 came on the VHS. And we were in Norfolk, and there was a bus shelter, and it was this kind of big, tall poster with a witch's face on it. And it just said, Halloween 3, Season of the Witch, the night no one comes home. And I remember saying to my dad, what is this? What about Michael Myers? I'm 9 years old or whatever. What about Michael Myers? What about Michael Myers? And he didn't have a clue. And we watched it kind of, I don't know, maybe a year after that or something when it finally hit VHS. And I remember being so disappointed. I couldn't believe it. The only shot of Michael Myers was Michael Myers was part of this universe, but as a movie. And so, there's a scene in the bar where he's on the TV. There's also a scene at the end of the film where they're watching Halloween on TV when he's tied up. But it took a long, long time for me to appreciate this. And I think once you do get into the spirit of it, it does have a genuine feel of the original 2 Halloween movies. And that's all down to, Dean Cundy, there's Tommy Lee Wallace in there, John Carpenter and Deborah Hill producing. What else? Even Dick Warlock's in there, who was Michael in part 2. Tom Atkins, who's part of that kind of overall Carpenter universe, having been in Escape from New York and The Fog. And it's just a really different story that obviously people were upset with at the time, but now I think there's a lot to love about it because it's kind of unique. There's nothing like it. I mean, it's kind of Invasion of the Body Snatchers. It was written originally by Nigel Neal, who wrote Quatermass and The Pit, and there's something kind of Twilight Zone-y about it. There's something kind of really mysterious, atmospheric, and disturbing about it. This toy maker who just wants to kill kids,
so like
for no real reason.
I know, like originally they were going to do like an anthology, like a different Halloween.
Yeah,
I wondered if was this script floating around and they just tagged Halloween 3 onto it, or was it written specifically?
It was written specifically as an anthology Halloween movie as part of the franchise. But as everybody says now, they would have been better calling it just Season of the Witch, and it probably would have
100%.
performed better because the opening weekend that it came out, I think it didn't perform particularly well because words got out that Michael Myers isn't in it. Michael Myers is dead at this point. And then the second weekend, it just fell off a cliff and was a disaster because word of mouth gets out there and people are like, this isn't what this isn't what you think it is. But now it's got a whole new audience out there. People absolutely love it. And I'm so pleased that there's a newfound love for it. And, it's given a new lease of life to Tom Atkins as an actor as well. You know, as a celebrity, you know, people are just flocking to get his autographs at conventions. I went to Halloween 45 last year. The queue for him was huge,
That's awesome.
absolutely huge. And
he has got so many films under his belt. It is insane.
yeah,
Specifically, if you're a fan of 80s, John Carpenter,
absolutely,
Creepshow. Oh,
yeah.
that guy's great. That is a fantastic pick. Do you know what? I almost had that one on my list, but I just love it too much to be a guilty pleasure. I adore that movie. It's the one I watched when I was a kid. I will say it's my favorite Halloween sequel because technically it is, but as a solo movie, I love it. It's the one I watch every Halloween. I haven't shown it to my daughter yet. She's a bit young, but she does love the Silver Shamrock song.
Oh yeah.
So she makes me play that on repeat. She's not quite old enough to watch it yet, but
she's only 8.
she was all about Silver Shamrock. What I said in our video as well, Jenks, is nothing quite captures the essence of Halloween like this movie does, and it's because of the whole toy factory and masks. The whole film is built around actual Halloween, not just a killer or something happening on Halloween. The story's about Halloween as much as it can be, if that makes sense.
I think I think for only recently, I would say that Halloween has really come to the UK, as in the holiday. Like Americans have always celebrated like Christmas almost, but we have only kind of embraced it. I say maybe in the last 10 years.
Yeah,
where, like,
I guess so.
but I'll confess, right? I have seen Season of the Witch, and I didn't care about the Michael Myers thing because I hadn't seen Halloween 1 and 2. To me, it was just like I watched it fresh, so I didn't have any confusion watching. I was like, "Oh, this is a
See
great
what I
film."
got to deal with, Darren? He doesn't like any of the Halloweens. This is what I got to deal with.
Have you still not seen
Oh no,
Halloween?
I've seen them now. I haven't seen
Okay.
all the sequels. I've seen like 1, 2, and I think
That's enough. That's all you
6,
need.
7, and all the and the
Yes.
new crap ones. All the and the awful Rob Zombie ones. I've
Yeah,
seen
yeah.
too many. But at the time, I didn't see any connection. I was very young watching it. I watched it on VHS, and I was just like, I didn't care that it was called number 3. I don't think I was too young and stupid to realize like, oh, maybe there's 2 others. I didn't know Michael Myers was, so I was lucky, really.
Yeah, yeah. It's one of those films that the more you watch it, the more you kind of notice in there. There's a lot of stuff that's kind of either linked in some way, whether be it's characters sorry, not characters, but actors, or you know, the guy that did the score. The stings in the movie are very reminiscent of stings in the original Halloween and Halloween 2. There's so much in there that make it feel part of the Halloween franchise as a whole, even though Michael Myers isn't in it. And it's a kind of, it would have been, and this is what I pray they do with the TV series. I really want them to exploit this now. I don't mind if they do a remake of this as for the TV series. I think the story's good enough for them to do a 3 or 4 episode mini series on it. But I'd love to see them do a bunch of episodes that are Halloween themed, like you say, Curtis, that have got that are really ensconced in Halloween. I don't mean the Halloween Michael Myers franchise.
Yes.
I just mean the season.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
just like not trick or treat, but maybe trick or treat as well. Trick or treat as well.
Yes.
That one. With movies that have got a real kind of heavy. So there's a film that came out last year by the director of 30 Days of Night called Dark Harvest, and it's a really cool little horror film. And the feeling of Halloween is so present in that film that, you know, the guys who've got the Halloween TV series could learn a thing or two from him about how to, you know, really make this new TV series if they are going to go the anthology route.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
That one has actually caught my eye a few times, but I haven't got around to it.
That's great. It's really good.
If it's good, I will definitely give that a watch.
Definitely give it a watch. Yeah.
Right, get this. Are you ready for this? What's your second pick? I'm dreading it.
You're going to be really happy with this one.
I know what it is. Shall I say it?
Go on then.
Is it Street Trash?
Yep.
Oh
Ah,
my God.
have you seen that, Darren?
A long time when it first came out.
Oh,
Yeah.
I watched it about 3 weeks ago. I had to pay for it because he was bugging me so much. Little did I know it was free on YouTube. I paid £4.50 for it. It's dog shit.
Do you know what?
Dog
I
shit.
absolutely love this film, right? I have it on Blu-ray 3 times. I've got it on
God.
VHS. I got T-shirts. I got the Viper bottle, liquor bottle, prop.
Excellent.
I absolutely love this film. Again, it's one of those movies that I loved when I was a kid. My father had it on VHS tape. It was one of the movies that was on the top shelf that I weren't allowed to watch. There's a scene where a guy gets his cock cut off and they're playing pig in the midway there.
So bad.
There's a
So
scene
bad.
where a woman's breast melts off.
Yeah.
There was so much in there that I shouldn't have been watching at that age. And I'd climb to the top shelf and I'd go in and I'd watch it. And it just felt wrong to be watching it. And it kind of used to make me feel sick. And that feeling has stayed. So every time I watch it, I get that same horrible feeling because it is just a really dirty
Shit
and
film.
horrible film.
Yeah.
It's filthy. Filthy it is.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, it's disgusting. It's
I'm sure you said they're remaking it. Or was that just a rumor?
that
Are they
no,
really?
no. I've seen set photos, so they're actually doing it.
wow.
Do you know what? It's got a big cult following. I think it's a great film. I know it's a bit shit, but it's a
bit
film that
shit.
you can turn on. It's a film that you can turn on
You can
and
turn
just
off
shut
as
off.
well. It's shit.
It's got a basic premise. It's as basic as it follows the lives of these homeless guys as they wander the streets and this local shopkeeper that the homeless people go in to buy liquor from. He finds a crate of Viper that he chucks on the counter and sells them for $1. So obviously all the homeless get their hands on it. And it's as basic as homeless people drinking this Viper stuff and melting. There's a whole sort of Vietnam backdrop as well. And I mean by PTSD, so there's a lot of Vietnam PTSD.
You're
So
saying it
it
as
is
if
a lot
it's a
deeper than you might think,
I
Jen. All
I
right?
heard you sounded like you're trying to make it sound deep. How long ago did you see it, Darren?
Oh, in the 80s. I was
In
trying
the
to
80s.
remember then which one was worse. Was it Street Trash or The Stuff? Because that was fucking awful as well.
I
Yes,
love them
I agree.
both.
Enough is never enough. Enough is never enough of the stuff.
I know he loves them both.
But just to clear something up, I love them too because they're crap, and they're just the movies that I
That's
love.
what I
You
gotta
know,
cope
give
with.
me a break. I love these movies.
I put it on. He's been bagging on you about it for
No,
years,
wait there.
actually.
I have not, Jenks. I told you not to watch it because I knew you wouldn't like it. And I was over his house, right? And I was down in his basement. He said, let's watch a film. And he said, I'm going to put Street Trash on. And I said, you're going to hate it, Jenks. And he sat there miserable watching it while I was having the time of my life.
It was so bad, Darren, right? There's a scene that you think, like, when he pitched it to me, it's like people drinking this, tramps drinking liquid and they all melt. Oh, that
Yeah,
sounds
yeah.
right. Sounds trashy.
Sounds all right.
That happens about 3 times. It's not even the plot of the movie. Then there's a long scene where a guy gets his cock chopped off and he's chasing it. He's not bleeding, but it's like trying to be a comedic moment. He's not even stressed. He's just like, hey,
I
give it back.
remember, yeah.
And then there's like,
Give it back.
yeah, and then he goes on a bus, he's waving because he's got on a bus and he's got his cock in his hand. It's all dry, there's no blood on it. And it finished, and I looked at him and thought, good, that is the worst film I have ever seen in my life.
Excuse me.
Do you know what? It stayed with him so much. We watched that 2 days before we went away. We had a stag in Lanzarote, and me and Jenk shared a room. And it must have been like 9 o'clock in the morning, and I was still lying in bed, and he was sitting on the edge of the bed, deep in thought. And he goes, I'll ask you a very serious question now. I was like, oh, what? You don't actually like that film, do you? So he slept on it, and it's bothering him that I like it because he sat at the edge of the bed like this, and he goes, I got to ask you a very serious question. What's wrong with you?
I'm genuine. I'm not even. I wasn't even like taking the piss. I understand with things like the stuff. At least it's actually got a narrative. I don't mind crap films that's got a narrative, but Street Trash didn't have a narrative. You know?
No.
It's just nonsense.
Yeah.
Well, guys, It is on my guilty pleasure list, all right? Not my favorite list. So cut me some slack,
Fair enough.
yeah?
Right. I've got the last one of the night. I doubt if anyone's going to guess who it is. I am cheating a little bit. It is a sci-fi horror. Well, actually, Street Trash is a sci-fi horror. And it is technically a mini series, but it was released as like one. I watched it in one go, like like 3 hour version on VHS, and it's Stephen King's The Langoliers. Has anyone seen that?
No, I
I've seen
haven't,
that.
I'm
Yes.
afraid.
You were
Oh
sorry?
my
I
God.
haven't, no.
That is a guilty pleasure.
I knew you wouldn't guess. I was excited.
Oh, Jesus Christ, Jenks.
Right. I'm a big fan of time travel, and I'm a big fan of Stephen King. And it is a proper TV movie sort of vibe. You've got David Morse is in it. He's a really good actor. And you've got Dean Stockwell, who played Al in Quantum Leap.
Yeah.
So when you watch it, it's clearly like a TV movie. But what's great about it? Did you say you haven't seen it, Darren?
I haven't, no.
I'm gonna do a spoiler.
Okay, go for
Is
it.
that okay? Or should
Yeah,
I just keep it
yeah.
vague? So basically, there's a flight that the few people fall asleep on the flight, and when they wake up, most of the plane is empty, and all that's left is like watches and rings on people's seats, as if they've been vaporized, pacemakers, and there's nobody flying the plane. So everybody who was sleeping somehow wasn't affected by what happened. So luckily, one of the people sleeping was a pilot on a day off, so he can pilot the plane. There's no one in flight control. They managed to land on this airport, and it's deserted. And I love intriguing sort of movies like this. Cut a long story short, they've gone through a time rip. It sounds shit now saying it.
No. This actually sounds really intriguing.
So they've gone through a rip in space time in the plane, and whatever reason, the people died, and the ones who were sleeping survived it. And when they land on Earth, it's deserted because it's the past, and nobody is in the past. Everybody's in the present, and it's empty. It's devoid of the matches don't strike. But there's these monsters coming. You can hear monsters in the distance called the Langoliers, and they eat the past, and they gradually eat it till it catches up to the present. And they got to try and get back through the wormhole. It sounds awesome when I'm saying like this. It sounds like oh shit, I don't know.
The only problem is
I'm really intrigued.
Even I'm intrigued, right? And it's a great story because it's Stephen King. I bet the book is brilliant, but it's very much a product of his time. The miniseries.
What year did it come out? It's a miniseries, right?
95.
95.
It is yes, because I had it on VHS. It was like one long version, like a bit like it 1990 It. I think it was marketed the same sort of way, but it was released in 2 parts, an hour and a half each part on Sky TV. But I loved it. I like the story so much. I'm a big fan of. I love Stephen King. I love time travel, and I would argue this is the most original idea for time travel. You can't change history because nobody's there.
Yeah.
And I think it's underrated and a guilty pleasure.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because Stephen King. We just did an episode on hasn't come out yet, but Sleepwalkers, which I remember seeing when it first came out, and I didn't think much of it when it came out. I thought it was pretty naff. But then watching it the other day, I had a lot of fun with it. Even though it's as cheesy as fuck, I just thought this is actually quite good fun and quite edgy as well. You know what I mean? All the kind of incest and nonsense going on there, and some really cool kind of practical effects work, some awful practical effects work, and some awful early CG as well. But in addition to that, some really cool practical effects work as well. And Stephen King. There are more bad movies than good movies when it comes to Stephen King. When you think of the good ones, they're few and far between. The Mist, Shawshank, Green Mile, Carrie, maybe Creepshow. You know, there's very few that the top half of the good films are solidly outweighed by the bad 100%. Films.
Definitely,
and it's such a shame because. Yeah, it's such a shame because he's got some good stories, but for years people have just been fucking them up before it
Well,
comes
well,
to the.
there's a quote from Stephen King. I'm paraphrasing slightly, but he said, "When I write a book and the studio gets hold of it and wants to make a film, it's like sending your granddaughter to college and hoping she doesn't get pregnant. It's
Yeah.
literally like out of his hands." Something like that, he said, which I thought, yeah, okay, I got a bit more sympathy with your bad movies because you don't have a hand in any of them, you know.
Oh, of course, of course. He did have a hand in the atrocious Shining TV show, though.
Well, that I thought that was actually quite sort of well respected, that one, because isn't it Mick Garris that directed it? I think
Mick Garris directed, yeah. Mick Garris who
Yeah.
directed Critters 2.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. Who directed Langoliers then?
Oh, that's the one thing I couldn't be bothered to research.
It's Tom Holland.
Is
So
it?
Tom Holland who did
Really?
Fright Night,
Fright Night.
Well,
and
that
and
changes
Child's
everything.
Play.
and he wrote, didn't he write Psycho 2 as well? I think he did. Yeah,
I love
and
Tom
Child's
Holland wrote
Play.
Psycho
Yeah.
2, yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you know just a quick thing about Stephen King? I don't know if you know this, Darren and Curtis, but The Lawnmower Man was nothing to do with his story. So have you ever seen the Lawnmower Man movie?
Yeah, I didn't like it at all. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
the story's got nothing to do with Stephen King. In fact, I think it was just a script that was floating around and they kind of tweaked it to include a Lawnmower Man and stuck on Stephen King Presents. And Stephen King took him to court and said, this has nothing to do, because in his story, it's just this crazy guy that eats grass, eats lawns. It's
Where does all the VR come from then?
nothing. There's no VR. It's just literally the title they stole. So Stephen King took him to court and won the right to take his name off the film.
Yeah.
So if you go on Amazon Prime, it's on Amazon Prime, and when you look at the trailer, and when you like hover over and it shows the trailer, it says at the start, the voiceover guy goes, "From the mind of," and it goes blank, and it goes, the Lawnmower Man. It's like, oh, you couldn't even get rid of "from the mind of,"
From the mind
and they
of,
just
yeah.
removed it. I was like, oh
There's
my God,
such a blatant jump there because it is from the mind of, and then there's like a 4-second
yeah.
gap. Comes the Lawnmower Man. Yeah.
I didn't
Yes.
know that. I didn't know that. That's really
It's
funny.
worth watching. It probably won't see it on YouTube because you'll have the old version. But if you go on Prime, you'll see it and you'll laugh. You think, oh my God, that's why.
I love the fact that because he directed Maximum Overdrive, didn't he?
Yeah.
And he doesn't even remember doing it because he
No,
was
he was
so
off his face on coke.
coked off his tits for the whole shoot. And when you read into the stories behind the scenes on that film, it's just frightening, absolutely frightening.
I know.
Or with like dangerous stuff, like because they're dealing with cars.
Well, he just didn't. Not just that, but just him and his behavior and what the fact that he can't. It's like Alice Cooper in the late 70s, early 80s. He does a bunch of like 5 or 6 albums. He doesn't even remember recording, because he was so out to lunch when he was. Do you know what I mean? When he was doing that stuff.
That's crazy.
Yeah, that's just mad, isn't he? Can't remember directing a film.
I
Jesus
can't
Christ.
remember most of our podcasts. The early ones are just like blurred.
Close to being deleted.
Yeah, just my background keeps getting better, and I don't remember how we get.
It is true though. I mean, like, because we've done close to coming up on 600, I think, soon. And
That's crazy.
It's compared to some others. I mean, when you look at the likes of Barry, who's Wolfman's Got Nards, who's done, coming 2,000 or something like that.
Yeah, I know.
Dave McRae's well over 1,000, and we only put out probably 2 bits of content a week, sometimes 3, but we've managed to do over the years 500 and between 550 and 600, I think. And I sometimes go back just to, like, if I'm coming on here today, I didn't do this, but it's the sort of thing I would do, is go back and listen to a Halloween 3 episode we did, or an episode on Piranha, just to re-jog my memory about research I'd done in the past about it. And you just think, Jesus Christ, I don't even remember saying this stuff. Do you know what I mean?
No. Yes.
It will get like that slowly. Do you know what I mean? You'll start to forget. We've started to talk about recording episodes and then realized we've already done that. Do you know what I mean? It gets like that back, because you do end up scrambling around for things to talk about. And when you've covered all your favorite movies kind of 4 or 5 times over in different guises, you know.
I
So
think I've literally talked about Dawn of the Dead remake
He was
more times.
banned.
I've
Banned,
probably been
yeah.
banned by Curtis.
I said, "No more
'Cause I
You're not
love
allowed
it
to
so much.
mention Dawn of the Dead."
Right, I think today's been quite brilliant because I will watch Piranha, and I think Darren's gonna watch The Langoliers, but I won't hold you
I'm
to it.
intrigued now. Yeah, yeah,
No
sure.
one no one's gonna watch
Street Trash?
Street
No, no.
Trash.
Jenks, you gotta watch Trick or Treat, though.
Yes,
Oh,
I'd
okay.
recommend you
Trick or
watch
Treat.
that.
I
That is a
will
good
watch
film.
that. I think we're all
Although I would
agreed.
hang on because there's a
They got a
great new
4K coming, haven't they?
4K of it coming along with all sorts of stuff on there. So, you know,
Yeah, I've
it'd be
pre-ordered
worth.
that one.
Yes, I will watch. Like I said, I won't watch in Street Trash again. I actually have seen that film, and I just couldn't watch it again. But if you do want to watch it again, it's free on YouTube. If you want to put yourself through like 85 minutes of hell,
Put a link down below so you can watch
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
put a link down below saying don't
Um,
press this button.
just to end the video like that. Don't sub to the channel, guys. Click on this link below to go and watch Street Trash.
We really appreciate you coming on, Darren.
No problem.
Oh,
Anytime.
massively, mate.
Anytime.
Do you want to give your channel a quick plug?
Yeah,
while you're
thanks.
on?
It's Slaughtered Lamb Movie Podcast or TSL Movie Podcast. It's myself and a guy called Frank Riker. Frank is in New Jersey in the US, and I'm in a little kind of fishing village called Leon Sea. And we get together a couple of times a week to do a live or a pre-recorded episode, and we've been going about 4 or 5 years now. So
It's
yeah,
awesome. I've
good.
been watching your content. It's really good. And
Thank you.
Curtis particularly loves it because it's a lot of 80s stuff, and you're
Yeah.
obsessed with that
Yes.
decade, and yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
I was actually watching your guys' podcast way before I even thought about doing one myself. Yeah,
Oh,
just,
thank you.
just a big fan of your stuff, mate. Honestly,
Oh,
we
thank
really
you.
appreciate
Yeah.
you coming on.
It's it's a
Appreciate
real
it.
honor. Really appreciate it. I'd love to do something again with you, and with
Definitely.
Frank, be fantastic.
Definitely. No, that'd be great. Well, next time we'll get Frank on as well, and we'll do something.
Yeah.
And you know, who knows? You guys might be up and running with the live by then, and we can do something live with you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So,
Yes, it's
guys,
definitely in the cards.
make sure you subscribe to the Slaughtered Lamb, and make sure you subscribe to ours. Don't forget that. And we'll catch you on the next one. Cheers, guys. Cheers.
Cheers, guys.
Bye bye. Cheers.